Let's look at some of the relief that has been granted by National Treasury government, extending that temporary fuel levy relief to cushion motorists from the sharp price hikes linked to the Middle East conflict and a weaker rand and higher oil prices. That petrol levy cut of 3 rand a litre that continues into May. Diesel relief increases to about 3 rand 93. That's effectively zero levy for this period. But despite this relief, we can still see an expected jump when it comes to the price at the pump. Fuel expected to go up by more than 2 rand a litre. Diesel by as much as 5 rand. Bobby Ramagwede is the CEO of the Automobile Association of South Africa, currently in China. Good morning, Bobby, or good afternoon there, Bobby. I hope you are well. This continued cut when it comes to levy relief, is this meaningful for motorists? Maybe just softening an unavoidable blow over the next few weeks and months?
So you're quite right. It is an unavoidable blow. The real concern here is how much of a levy, or rather, how much of the tax that's available to the state is using. So whilst we welcome the additional 93 cents rounding out the complete general fuel levy on diesel side, there's still another 1 rand 10 available for petrol. And broadly speaking, the original tax base was 6 rand 47. So it's a plus and a minus. The plus is that some of the tax is being removed from the table, taking the burden away from the consumer, but there's still a lot more lever available for the government to use down the line.
Yeah. Treasury is saying that it will cost 17.2 billion rand. That will be covered without impacting the broader budget. But like the Democratic Alliance saying that there are other funds, other pockets of savings that can be made in other departments, other sectors, other entities that can help cushion the blow for South Africans.
100%. We've been echoing the same sentiment. In fact, our words have been reduced to this isn't a revenue collection issue. This is an expense management issue. The state collects more than enough money to run this country. For us to be shouldering this expense right now in the form of taxes, given the nature of the situation we're dealing with, doesn't make any sense at all.
Because what we will experience, and if Treasury's warnings are to be believed, saying, well, May, maybe June, but definitely not July. It means come mid-year, come midwinter, that's when we'll probably see a major fuel price shock where that 6 rand buffer cannot, or the department says it won't be able to buffer South Africans. What do you think that's going to mean middle of the year, middle of winter for South Africans?
What we're anticipating is going to happen is much like what we're experiencing right now. We were told that they might continue the relief and that it would be a 1 month program. Today, we've been advised that it will be extended a little bit further. The reality of it is, if we allow for fuel prices to run rampant in this country, we'll have a general inflation structural change. That is, the price of general goods and services will increase beyond levels that we can digest. That sort of narrative and that idea is not foreign to the government, and they're definitely considering it. So what we anticipate is likely to happen is that we'll have a continuation of these relief packages well into June, possibly into September.
Now, Bobby, the AA, you've said recently that you're prepared for even mobilization with the larger diesel consuming groups, the towing industry, the taxi associations, the truck and freight industry. If government doesn't take any special action when you hint at mobilization, what action do you plan to take?
So when we hint at mobilization, we're looking towards a peaceful and silent demonstration of the real role players who consume diesel well in advance of it getting to the consumer.
The conversation around the deregulation of the petrol price, diesel is already deregulated. The deregulation of the petrol price, this of course will have the impact on the fuel brands, the service stations. It will have an impact on the employees, the forecourt staff, the petrol attendants. But is this a conversation that we should be having again?
I don't think we should be having this conversation right now. The burning platform right now is that we sit in a situation where we have very little to no fuel reserves to cushion the country from price fluctuations and shocks. In addition to that, we've got an unregulated diesel sales platform that allows for retailers to upsell and downsell at their leisure. I think what we should be focused on is the crisis, which is the realization that we cannot avoid the inevitable, which is once we've exhausted all of our taxes in the fuel price, we are complete price takers to whatever the price is in the market.
Uh, you're currently in China, and you may have been traveling a bit. Of course, there's a greater rollout of electric vehicles in China. But what are you experiencing when consumers, when industry is talking around the world? This is a global fuel crisis that we're talking about.
It is. So what we've experienced is it all really depends on what the initial price was in the various countries. So you'll have one country go up from 15 rand a liter to 17 rand a liter, whilst we are experiencing, and I'll speak for petrol inland, jumping from 20 rand to 23 rand a liter. So it really depends on which territory and what their base price was. The reality is that general fuel prices are increasing. Some economies are sheltered to the extent that they have a variety of fuel sources. You mentioned the Chinese, you're quite right. EV uptake in this country is astronomical. In fact, I struggle to count ICE-powered vehicles by hand on my way to Shanghai this morning.
The Central Energy Fund regularly releases the data of the projections of what could be an expected fuel increase. I don't know when we'll expect a fuel expect a fuel decrease over the next while, but those projections come out regularly. But the official announcement only happens in the days, sometimes only 24 hours before the first Wednesday of the month. What would it mean for South Africans for maybe more regular updating of the price, maybe fortnightly, or maybe even 2 weeks to announce this is what we are expecting, so go on with this mark of how much we can expect a fuel price. But instead of waiting for 24 to 48 hours before the first Wednesday of every month, Bobby.
So there is merit behind waiting for, let's call it 24 to 48 hours prior. And that is there are a lot of fluctuations in the price in between the beginning of the month and the end of the month. And depending on which point in time you make those announcements, you're either announcing an over recovery and an under recovery or an under recovery. So it's best to look back an entire period and state what the average movement was. Was it an over or an under recovery?
Bobby Ramagwede is the CEO of the Automobile Association of South Africa, currently speaking to us from Shanghai in China.